Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the announcements by the Labour government this week that £1 billion is going to be spent on tackling homelessness next year, which is going to be a huge boost on what is currently spent. £126 million extra for hospices delivering end-of-life services. So how much of a boost is this in terms we can understand, and what impact is it going to have? But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So I had a comment on my first video today suggesting that Labour are fast becoming a one-term government because they've delivered nothing. But, I mean, there are a couple of things to say about that. First of all, I mean, Labour are actually putting in place quite a lot of long-term planning, which means delivery takes a while. But for any new government, you wouldn't expect tangible changes immediately. But second, they actually have delivered quite a bit already. Just because they're bad at communicating it and the media is not interested in helping them out doesn't mean it's not happening. So what have they done? Well as the boost to hospice funding of £126 million and double that for tackling homelessness, which I want to make my main discussion here, we also had a significantly above inflation pay increase for public sector workers, a very beefy one for junior doctors. We've had a real terms budget boost for the NHS, record deportations of failed asylum seekers, all above board, no hassle from the courts or activist lawyers. Thousands of pounds a year for many of the poorest pensioners after the drive to get people to sign up for pension credit, and an above inflation increase to the minimum wage. Although that, of course, will not be in place for a few months more. And all of this is before their legislation's even passed. They rushed through the bill to allow for the nationalisation of rail companies, so that's done. They've also brought military accommodation back into public hands this week, although it will be years before that pays for itself. But still, it means better accommodation for military personnel because the landlords will no longer be fixated on profits. So Starmer's actually already nationalised more privatised services in 6 months than any other political leader of Westminster of any party has done in my lifetime, I think. So given that the initial raft of legislation is still going through Parliament and the first budget has still not been implemented, I would say that Labour have actually done quite a lot. It's a shame they don't say it as well. But what about these latest announcements? Well, the homelessness one, main one for me. See, when Rachel Reeves announced her budget at the end of October, homelessness observers noted that it included a boost of £233 million in spending for next year. Now, that was already warmly welcome because, let's be honest, some of them feared cuts. Again, I suspect Labour not helping themselves with their doom and gloom messaging ahead of the budget. But remember, Keir Starmer had described homelessness as a political choice as leader of the opposition. So not a great look if you then appear to be making this choice to maintain it. In fact, he's already boosted funding to tackle homelessness for this Christmas. And he's been talking to the big issue about various other moves to deal with the issue long term, which includes setting up a group which is going to work across different government departments to work on the strategy, because this is one of those things that cuts across different departments. So when you have something that cuts across different departments, it can easily be missed out because it's not obvious who is responsible overall for it. So Angela Rayner has been given the brief of coordinating across those departments, which is why she is the one who announced this week how the new money is going to be spent. Because when the new money was announced with the budget, various commentators, they seemed happy to get a boost to spending rather than cuts, but they weren't quite sure how it was going to be divvied up or whether it would be new money. Is this going to be like coming from other budgets? But this week, Angela Rayner has announced that there would be this increase to £1 billion next year, and saying that it's new money. So it's not been taken from existing budgets for other things. Mind you, anyway, looking down the breakdown of funding on the government website. So it looks like a funding increase overall of 33% for next year across the board, which is a pretty solid boost considering the tight budgets right now. The biggest lump is for the homelessness prevention grant. Now, that's the fund which councils have access to help people who are at imminent threat of homelessness or have just become homeless. It includes help, for example, for people escaping domestic violence. That's a 43% increase on the existing funding. In addition, as the government press release states, because the government are abolishing no-fault evictions, then that will be an example of non-funded legislative ways of reducing homelessness as well. And Rain has also pointed out the additional £500 million for affordable housing on top of the existing funds, along with a few other measures designed to protect existing stocks of council houses. So although you won't really see much mention of this in the mainstream media, and actually I didn't see any mention of it, and you know, this is stuff that the government have either put in place now or are in the process of putting in place. These are measures which should significantly ease the problem of homelessness, both with record funding and legislative changes. But we've also had news on extra funding for hospices as well, though those don't quite get the same boost. Right now, hospices get about £500 million from central government. That's only about a third of the funding they need, so they get the rest from fundraising. The government have just announced a £126 million boost for this. So this breaks down into an extra £26 million for children's services, £100 million for adults. In theory, that's about a 25% boost. And even when you take off the extra money hospices are going to need to pay because of the public sector pay awards and the extra cost of employers' national insurance, which is reported to cost an extra £90 million altogether, that still means a real terms funding boost of £36 million. And things like this are worth pointing out. See, whether it's extra funding to tackle homelessness or for hospices, what we're talking about here is services for vulnerable people. There are other groups of vulnerable people who are extremely concerned about what's coming. You know, those with disabilities or long-term illness, for example, are very nervous about what the DUP are going to be announcing next year in terms of changes to the benefit system. After all, the Tories wanted to pay for their tax cuts with savage cuts to the benefits bill. We know that the Tories have done this over the past 14 years by randomly denying benefits to people, resulting in a lot of unnecessary deaths and impoverishment. And although Labour put on hold those plans, they have said they're going to make the savings. So they're putting the emphasis on savings to the benefits bill in interviews, which obviously has people worried. But although I'm not going to stand here and say, oh, everything will be marvellous, you know, senior ministers, including Kendall and Starmer, have also said that they recognise that although people need to be helped into work, they know that there are people who can't. But helped into work has been used as a bit of a euphemism, hasn't it? By the Tories to mean, yeah, we're going to stop your benefits to get you lazy bastards to get a job, you know, by gaslighting Conservatives. So I get how this gives no comfort until things are announced. But what I would say is this: Labour have just given a massive boost to homelessness funding, a real terms funding boost to hospices, and the people using these services are not key target voters for anyone. So this is not about buying votes. This is the action of a government that is actually not casting the most vulnerable to the wolves, despite the impression some people may get from the general rhetoric and, you know, various reporting. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video enjoyable. Please click the like button if you did, and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for listening, and until next time, I'll see you later.